The heart attack. Welcome back to Veiled Wealth. We spend a lot of time talking about demand. We talk about solar panels in China, missiles in Russia, and the BRICS currency. But none of that matters. Literally none of it. If the metal never comes out of the ground, the rest is just noise. You need to look at the map. You need to look at Mexico. For 500 years, since the days of the Spanish Empire, Mexico has been the beating heart of the global silver trade. It is the Saudi Arabia of silver. It produces nearly 25% of the world's supply. It is the only reason the COMEX still has bars in the vault. But the heart is stopping. While you were watching the charts, while you were arguing about the Fed, the new Mexican administration quietly signed a death warrant for the industry. It isn't a tax. It isn't a strike. It is a legislative ban on open pit mining. Why does that matter? Because 60% of Mexico's silver production comes from open pits. We are talking about the giant mines like Peñasquito that feed the global market. If this law is fully enforced in 2026, those mines don't just get expensive, they get illegal. This is the story of the Mexico freeze. It is the story of how the world's largest supplier is committing economic suicide, and how it guarantees a supply shock that no amount of recycling can fix. The Sheinbaum Shock. To understand why the supply chain is about to break, you have to understand the political earthquake that just hit Mexico City. The new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, is not a friend of the industry. She has doubled down on a policy that is terrifying. The mining giants, a policy that started under AMLO but is now being codified into the Constitution. The policy is simple: no new concessions. For the last 2 years, the Mexican government has refused to issue new exploration permits. Think about what that means. A mine is a depleting asset. Every day you dig, you have less silver. If you aren't exploring for new deposits, if you aren't drilling, you are slowly going out of business. The pipeline is empty. The next generation of mines, the mines that were supposed to supply the solar boom of 2030, are not being built because the government won't sign the paperwork. But that was just the warm-up. The real weapon is the open pit ban. The ruling party has introduced constitutional reforms to prohibit open pit mining entirely, citing environmental damage. Now, to the layman, that sounds nice. Save the environment, protect the water. But to the forensic economist, it is a catastrophe. Silver is rarely found in pure veins anymore. Those were mined out 100 years ago. Today, silver is found in low-grade deposits that require moving massive amounts of earth. You cannot mine these deposits underground. It is geometrically impossible. You must use an open pit. If you ban the method, you ban the metal. You are effectively turning off 60% of the production capacity of the world's largest producer. Imagine if Saudi Arabia banned oil drilling and said, "We will only collect oil that bubbles up to the surface naturally." The price of oil would go to $500 overnight. That is exactly what Mexico just did to silver. Peñasquito. Let's get specific. Let's talk about Peñasquito. This is Newmont's massive mine in Zacatecas. It is the 5th largest silver mine in the world. It is an open pit. Under the new proposed laws, this mine and others like it are living on borrowed time. The government is threatening to revoke permits for open pits that damage the water supply. If Peñasquito closes, that is 30 million ounces of silver per year removed from the market. Just like that, gone. That is more silver than the entire inventory of the COMEX registered category. And that is just one mine. When you add up the impact of the no new concessions policy and the open pit ban, you are looking at a supply cliff in 2026 that makes the 1980s squeeze look like a joke. We aren't talking about a shortage. We are talking about a stockout. But the ban is only the first arm of the pincer. For the mines that are currently operating, the government has introduced a new royalty trap. They are hiking the taxes to a level that makes mining unprofitable, even at $35 silver. Fiscal and physical. We need to talk about the fiscal siege. Under the new Sheinbaum administration, the mining tax code is being rewritten. Historically, Mexico is a friendly jurisdiction. That is why Canadian capital flooded in during the 2000s. But the new mining law reform changes the math entirely. They are proposing to hike the special mining duty from 7.5% to 8.5%. Now, 1% sounds small, but when you stack that on top of the corporate tax rate, the social impact fees, and the new water usage taxes, the government is effectively taking 50% to 60% of the free cash flow. And then there is the shadow tax. You cannot talk about Mexican silver in 2026 without talking about the cartels. The major mining belts, Guerrero, Michoacan, Zacatecas, are also the primary battlegrounds for organized crime. The cartels realize that silver is easier to monetize than fentanyl. It has a global spot price. It is untraceable once melted. So they started levying the piso, a floor tax, extortion. If you're a mid-tier miner, you pay a monthly fee to the local commander. If you don't pay, your trucks get hijacked. The cost of security, armored convoys, private armies, satellite tracking used to be 1% of the budget. Now, for some mines, it is 10%. This creates a triple threat. 1. Legal siege, the open pit ban. 2. Fiscal siege, the tax hikes. 3. Physical siege, the cartel extortion. China's pivot. Now, this paints a grim picture for supply. If the Mexican tap turns off, where does the metal come from? But here's the twist. While the Canadian miners are fleeing, there's one entity that is running into the burning building. China. I want you to look at the shipping manifest from the Port of Manzanillo on the Pacific coast. This is the primary exit point for Mexican minerals. For 30 years, the silver went north to the US or Canada, but in the last 24 months, the compass has flipped. We are seeing a massive surge in bulk carriers departing Manzanillo with a destination of Shanghai and Qingdao. But here's the trick. They aren't shipping silver bars. If they shipped 1,000 O's LBMA bars, it would show up in the bullion reports. Instead, they are shipping concentrate. You need to understand the difference. When you mine silver, you get a muddy gray sludge mixed with lead and zinc. This is concentrate. China says to the struggling Mexican miners, "Don't refine it, just sell us the mud." They are buying the raw earth directly from the mine gate. They load thousands of tons of this concentrate onto ships. Once it leaves Mexican waters, it disappears from the Western ledger. It goes to a Chinese smelter. It gets refined in China. It enters the Shanghai Gold Exchange ecosystem. It never touches the COMEX. It never touches the LBMA. It is phantom supply. The West thinks this silver is still part of the global pool. They think, oh, Mexico produced 200 million ounces, so we have access to it. Wrong. That metal has been pre-sold, pre-shipped, and pre-refined by the East. In 2024 alone, the value of silver ores and concentrates imported by China from Mexico was over 1.4 billion. That is millions of ounces that you are counting on to suppress the price that are already gone. $100 and the Libertad. It leads to one inevitable conclusion. A conclusion that will hit the market in 2026 like a freight train. What is the number? If the world's largest producer goes offline, where does the price go? To answer that, you have to understand inelasticity. Samsung cannot decide to use less silver. The demand is fixed. So when you have inelastic demand colliding with a 25% supply cut, the price goes vertical. Here is the veiled wealth forecast. When the open pit ban is fully enforced in mid-2026, the new floor price of silver will shift to $50. And the breakout price, the target, where industrial panic sets in, is $100. But there is a specific asset that will perform even better, the Mexican Libertad. It is the canary in the coal mine. The Casa de Moneda does not have its own mines. It buys from the industry. When the mines stop producing, the mint is the first to get cut off. In 2026, I predict we will see a zero mintage year. What does that mean for the Libertads you already own? It means they stop being bullion and become numismatic rarities. If the Mexican silver industry dies, the Mexican silver coin becomes a relic. We could see premiums jump to $50 or $100 over spot. The Mexican sun is setting on the silver industry. The Sheinbaum Shock has turned the world's best mining jurisdiction into a graveyard of capital. The open pits are closing, the taxes are strangling the survivors, and China is sweeping up the dust at the port. The death warrant has been signed. The market just hasn't felt the rigor mortis yet. But you have the file. Do not wait for the headline on Bloomberg. By the time the news breaks, the inventory will be gone. Look at your stack. Do you have enough? Because the window to acquire silver at pre-ban prices is closing faster than a mine gate in Zacatecas. This is Veiled Wealth. The warrant is signed. Class dismissed.